Yeah, I can sure see that this is going to be a good one. There's some more coming over here.
Oh yeah. If we don't get that annual cool front, the
Yeah,
first week of dove season.
it seems like every year, you know, the first week is always the best, and then we get that one little cool front that roars through here, and then that's all she wrote.
Makes it tough.
But hopefully it'll be a good one this year.
Have you guys had, I know we've had some calls at the office, some questions about the new harvest information permit. It's a new requirement.
We've had a lot of calls too in our office, and essentially, you know, this was a federal regulations that we came up with and the states adopted, and it's to get survey information from the hunters so we can better manage the migratory bird species the following year.
Right, and we've, I guess, have a lot of calls from the lifetime license holders, and they're not exempt. They need to go, you know, to a local license dealer, and it doesn't cost them anything. They just need to ask for the, you know, the free harvest information permit. It's just a couple of questions about whether are they going to hunt migratory birds, and like you said, try to collect some survey information so that get more information about the harvest.
Right. Of course, you guys and my agents will all be checking those this year. Anybody that hunts migratory birds has to have that on their person, and not only doves, but your waterfowl, your cranes, rails, gallinoodles, this type of thing.
And I guess we've had some questions too. People ask, well, you know, if I'm just going to deer hunt or I'm just going to turkey hunt, do I need it? And they don't. Again, it's just for the migratory birds.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
Speaking of migratory birds, some people realize, most of them do, I guess, but some of them don't, that doves are actually migratory. They're not like the quail or the pheasants. And so that's kind of why we work together a lot of times in the dove season. Doves have kind of a dual jurisdiction. They're state and federally protected.
That's right. You know, under federal law, they're protected under what we call the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and it is a federal statute that the states also adopt. And it's nice here in Oklahoma because our federal regulations almost mirror the state regulations for dove hunting.
To keep up with things.
You bet.
I found not too far from here, just back north a little bit. We kind of stumbled last year into a baiting case, and that's something I know that periodically comes up. You know, what is baiting? And of course, you can't bait at all for doves.
Right. That's true, and sometimes there is some confusion on baiting. However, there really shouldn't be. For dove situations, anytime you place, deposit, or distribute grain on open land, that is baiting. It's unlawful to hunt over that added grain. There's nothing wrong with being in an area like this where you've got a harvested crop or something like that and then hunting over that. It's just when you add that grain to the land. One other thing that comes up quite often is planting methods. It has to be a bona fide agricultural practice, and the planting method has to take into such things as seed bed preparation, the time of year that you plant the crop, etc. One thing that in Oklahoma is not legal is top sowing of any grain. It's not considered a bona fide agricultural practice.
And we were into this. Slip that in through, just say, throw the grain on top, say, well, we were just planting our wheat.
We were just planting our wheat. It don't work that way.
And also, I think it's come up before, if a landowner wants to brush hog or just drag down some weeds, that's not considered baiting, right? He can manipulate the crops or the weeds.
That's correct.
But he can't scatter any extra grain.
That's right.
That's the difference.
It has to be a standing crop. They can manipulate it any way for dove hunting. Now, when you get into waterfowl season, the regulation does not allow you to manipulate a crop for ducks and geese. This is a special requirement that the federal law allows hunters to do for dove hunting only. You can go in there and you can mow it down, a grain field or a sunflower field or natural vegetation to put the seed on the ground, but it has to be a standing crop.
Right. The one thing I guess that's come up before, in fact, you and I worked on a case that dealt with the tagging requirement, and that's maybe more prone to larger groups. People get through with the hunt and they come back and throw all their doves in one pile or one 5-gallon bucket and think, well, we'll clean them in a little bit, but that can lead to some problems.
Oh yeah. Now that's not only a violation of state law, but it is a federal regulation that we enforce quite stringently. Essentially, anytime you leave your birds in the custody of another person, they have to have your signature, your address, the number of birds you left with them, and the date killed. Also, the person that receives the birds, if he receives your untagged birds, he's in violation also.
Right.
So if I roll up on somebody and he's got 45 birds at his car, and he says they belong to a friend of mine, that don't count unless they're tagged.
They got to be tagged.
Yeah.
The other thing we've run into is 3 or 4 guys out in the field, and maybe one guy's got a vest and the other guy's wearing a T-shirt. I said, well, hold my birds, and he's got 25 birds, and he said, well, they all belong to Joe and Bill and whoever. But again, it comes back to the field possession limit.
Exactly.
He can only have his individual limit in the field.
Right.
Is that right?
That's correct, and that's not really a hard thing to do if you just keep track of your own
Sure.
birds. Don't have your buddy keep your birds while you're out in the field, because unfortunately, if we come up on him and he's got more than the daily bag limit, he's in violation.
It's pretty cut and dried.
Pretty cut and dry.
I guess a few of the other things that typically, unfortunately, run into is people driving down the road, shooting out of the back of the pickup, or shooting birds off the high line. Of course, that's illegal.
Right.
But of course, most people are out there doing it right. But
Yeah.
I guess unfortunately, some of them try to take shortcuts.
That's true, and it's just about every bird that flies is a protected migratory bird, whether it's a songbird or a shorebird or a hawk or an owl or something like that. It's protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Quite often when you're out hunting in a field like this, you'll jump a killdee or
Right.
something like that, and you'll react and shoot. You have to be real careful when you're out here, because those birds are protected.
I've checked a few people with metal arcs, and
Exactly.
they weren't sure what they had.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes I kind of make you guys the bad guys. I tell people that the federal fines are in fact higher than the state violations. It can be written either in state court or federal court, but you guys in fact have a little tougher penalties.
Right. The maximum fine for a violation of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act for a hunter is up to $5,000 and or 6 months in jail. And the other thing is they're both separate violations, your state violation and our
Right.
federal violation. So they can be both filed. It's not double jeopardy.
Right.
On real egregious offenses, this is quite often what we do.